Hey friends, if tales of quiet strength and hidden truths pull you in like a midnight read, smash that subscribe for weekly whispers of real-life reinvention. My husband went to the bank every Tuesday at exactly 2:00 p.m. for 38 years of marriage. Rain or shine, sick or healthy, he never missed it. When I asked why, he'd kiss my forehead and say the same thing every time. Just keeping our future secure, Sarah. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? John was an accountant. Numbers were his language, organization his religion. Our bills were always paid on time. Our taxes filed early. Our retirement accounts, he assured me, were solid. The day he died, I was at the grocery store picking out avocados. Michael, my son, called me with a voice I'd never heard from him before. Flat, careful, like he was afraid the words themselves might shatter me. Mom, you need to come to the hospital. Dad collapsed at work. By the time I got there, John was already gone. Massive heart attack. The doctor said he probably didn't feel much. Quick, clean, the way John would have wanted it if he'd had a choice. I didn't cry at the funeral. Everyone assumed I was in shock, that the grief hadn't hit me yet. But the truth was simpler and stranger. I felt relief. Not because I hated him. I didn't. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the shock and the exhaustion and the casseroles people kept bringing over, I felt like I could finally breathe. I just didn't know why yet. 3 days after the funeral, a letter arrived. Plain white envelope, no return address, my name typed on the front. Inside was a single sheet of paper from First National Bank. Dear Mrs. Jenkins, we wish to express our condolences regarding your husband's passing. Per the terms of the safe deposit box lease, we must inform you that you are listed as the secondary holder. The box has been paid through the end of the year. Please contact us at your earliest convenience to arrange access. I read it 3 times. We had a safe deposit box. John had never mentioned it, not once in 38 years. I called the bank that afternoon. The woman on the phone was polite, professional. Yes, the box was registered to John Jenkins with Sarah Jenkins as co-holder. Yes, I could access it. Would Thursday at 10 a.m. work? Thursday, 2 days away. I spent them moving through the house like a ghost, opening drawers John had organized, looking at files he'd labeled in his precise handwriting. Everything seemed normal, too normal, like a stage set designed to look exactly like a life. Michael came by on Wednesday evening. He looked tired, his tie loosened, his eyes rimmed with red. He'd taken his father's death hard. Mom, he said, settling into the kitchen chair where John used to sit. We need to talk about Dad's finances. I've been going through his office files and there are some things that don't add up. My stomach dropped. What kind of things? He pulled out a folder. Inside were bank statements, investment reports, documents I'd never seen. Did you know Dad had 3 different checking accounts? 3. No, we only have the joint account. Had, Mom, past tense. He pointed to a column of numbers. This account, it's been empty for 6 months. This one closed last year. And this one, he tapped a third statement, has a balance of $43. The room tilted slightly. That's not possible. Our retirement account alone should have over $400,000. Michael's face told me everything before his words did. Mom, I can't find it. Any of it. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in the bed John and I had shared for decades, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through memories, the Tuesday bank trips, his insistence on handling all the finances. The way he'd pat my hand and say, "Don't worry about the boring money stuff, Sarah. I've got it covered." He'd had it covered. All right. Thursday morning arrived cold and gray. I dressed carefully, choosing a navy blazer and slacks. Armor, not morning clothes. Michael offered to come with me, but I said no. Whatever was in that box, I needed to see it first alone. The bank was a modern building, all glass and steel. The manager, a woman in her 50s named Linda, met me at the entrance. Her smile was sympathetic, professional. "Mrs. Jenkins, I'm so sorry for your loss. Your husband was a valued client for many years." She led me down a hallway to the vault. The safe deposit boxes lined the walls like metal teeth. She used 2 keys, hers and the one she'd given me, to open box 847. "I'll give you privacy," she said, gesturing to a small room with a table and chair. The box was heavier than I expected. I carried it to the table, set it down, and for a long moment just stared at it. Plain metal, locked secrets, the summary of a marriage I thought I understood. I opened it. Inside were folders, lots of them. The first one I pulled out was labeled investments, actual. My hands shook as I opened it. Page after page of losses, bad investments, failed stocks, risky ventures that had tanked, hundreds of thousands of dollars gone. But these weren't accounts I recognized. These had John's name on them, only his name. The second folder was worse. Home equity loans. 3 of them taken out against our house, our home, the place where I'd raised my children and planted roses and painted the kitchen 3 different colors over the years. Total debt, $270,000. I couldn't breathe. The room felt too small, the walls pressing in. The third folder nearly broke me. Credit cards. Sarah's accounts, except I'd never opened these accounts. Never seen these cards. But there was my name, my social security number, my forged signature, 15 different cards all maxed out. Total balance, $96,000. He'd stolen my identity. My husband, the man who'd held my hand through childbirth and my mother's funeral and our daughter's wedding, had committed fraud using my name. I sat there for a long time, just breathing in, out, trying to anchor myself to something real. At the bottom of the box was an envelope, thick, cream-colored, my name written in John's handwriting on the front. I opened it with steady hands. The grief, the shock, all of it had burned away. What was left was something colder, clearer. Inside was a letter. Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. And you found the box, I'm sorry. That's inadequate, I know, but it's all I have. 5 years ago, I made an investment I was sure would pay off. It didn't. I tried to fix it. Every Tuesday, I went to the bank trying to restructure, trying to find a way out, but I just dug us deeper. The house loans, the credit cards in your name. I did it to buy time. I thought I could fix it before you ever had to know. I was wrong. By the time you read this, we're probably bankrupt. The house will likely go into foreclosure. Your credit is destroyed. I know you'll hate me. You should. I was trying to protect you from my mistakes, but all I did was make you pay for them. I'm sorry. I love you. That part was always real, John. I folded the letter, placed it back in the envelope, and put everything back in the box. Then I walked out of that room with my spine straight and my jaw set. Linda was waiting. Are you all right, Mrs. Jenkins? No, I said honestly, but I will be. I need copies of everything in that box, and I need the name of a good lawyer who handles financial fraud. Her eyes widened slightly, but she nodded. I'll make the copies myself. And Mrs. Jenkins, I'm truly sorry. By the time I got home, Michael's car was already in the driveway. He met me at the door, his face tight with worry. Mom, I found something else. Dad's life insurance policy. Don't tell me, I said, setting my purse down with more force than necessary. There isn't one. He blinked. How did you know? Because your father spent the last 5 years destroying everything we built, and apparently he was very thorough about it. I walked past him into the kitchen, pulled out the copies from the bank, and spread them across the table. Sit down. We have work to do. Michael read through everything, his face going pale, then red, then pale again. When he finished, he looked up at me with tears in his eyes. Mom, this is bad. This is really, really bad. I know. The house, your retirement, your credit, everything is gone. I know. How are you so calm? I sat down across from him, folded my hands on the table. Because anger is useless right now. What I need is a plan. The lawyer's name was Karen Mills. Linda from the bank had recommended her specifically for cases like mine. We met in her office the following Monday, a bright space with windows overlooking downtown Portland. She listened without interrupting as I walked her through everything. The safe deposit box, the loans, the credit cards, the forged signatures, John's letter. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. Mrs. Jenkins, I'm going to be direct with you. This is one of the worst cases of spousal financial abuse I've seen, and I've seen many. The word hung in the air. Abuse. Your husband systematically destroyed your financial security and did it in your name. That's not just mismanagement. That's fraud. It's identity theft. It's a crime, but he's dead. I said, what can we do? We can prove you weren't complicit. We can work with the creditors to show the signatures were forged. We can potentially save the house by demonstrating the loans were fraudulent, but it's going to be a fight. How long? 6 months, maybe a year, and it's going to cost money you probably don't have. I thought about the $43 in our checking account, about the empty retirement funds, about the pile of debt with my name on it. Then I thought about the letter, about John's careful handwriting, about 38 years of "Don't worry, Sarah. I'll find the money." I said, "Tell me what we need to do." That night, Lisa called. My daughter had always been closer to her father than to me. When I told her what I'd found, the silence on the other end of the line stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. "Mom," she finally said, her voice small. "Are you sure? Maybe there's an explanation. I have the documents, Lisa. I have his letter admitting to it, but Dad wouldn't do that. He loved you. He loved us." "He did," I said. "And he also stole my identity and destroyed our financial future." "Both things can be true." She hung up shortly after. Michael called me an hour later to tell me Lisa had called him crying, insisting I was wrong, that I was speaking badly about Dad, that grief was making me irrational. "She'll come around," Michael said. "Give her time." But I wasn't sure because I'd seen this before in other contexts with other families. The person who refuses to believe, the one who needs the lie to be true because the truth would shatter something fundamental in them. Next few weeks were a blur of paperwork and phone calls and meetings. Karen filed reports with the credit bureaus, contacted the credit card companies, gathered evidence of the forged signatures. We hired a handwriting expert who confirmed what I already knew. I hadn't signed those applications. Michael threw himself into helping me. He organized files, made spreadsheets, attended meetings. One evening, as we sat at the kitchen table going through another stack of documents, he looked up at me. "Mom, I need to tell you something." I set down my pen. "Okay." A few years ago, Dad asked me to invest in something with him, a tech startup. He said it was a sure thing that we'd make a fortune. I had $50,000 saved for the kids' college fund. He wanted me to put it all in. My heart sank. "Michael, please tell me you didn't." I almost did. But Anna, his wife, she didn't trust it. She said if it was such a sure thing, why did Dad need our money? We fought about it. I was so angry at her, but she held firm. I told Dad no. He looked at me with haunted eyes. I think he was already in trouble then. I think he was trying to use my money to fix his mistakes. And if I'd said yes, we'd have lost everything too. I reached across the table and took his hand. "But you didn't. Anna saved you. That's what matters. Do you think he would have kept going, taking from other people?" I thought about the letter, about John's words. I think he was drowning. And drowning people grab onto anything they can reach, even if it pulls someone else under. 3 months after John's death, we had our first victory. 2 of the credit card companies agreed the signatures were forged and removed the debt from my credit report. It wasn't much, but it was something. Proof that the truth could win, even if slowly. Lisa still wasn't speaking to me. She'd sent a short email saying she needed space, that she couldn't handle the way I was destroying Dad's memory. Michael said she'd come around eventually, but I wasn't convinced. Some bridges, once burned, stay burned. The lawyer for the home equity loans was harder to fight. They argued that as John's spouse, I'd benefited from the money, even if I hadn't signed the papers. Karen countered that I could prove I'd never seen the funds. They'd gone into accounts solely in John's name, spent on investments that failed before I knew they existed. "We're going to have to go to court," Karen said during one of our meetings. "A judge will have to decide if you're liable for debt created through fraud, even though you were married to the person who committed it." "Will we win?" She hesitated, and I appreciated her honesty. "I think so, but I can't guarantee it. This is complicated legal territory." The court date was set for late November, 6 months after John's death. In the weeks leading up to it, I did something I hadn't done in years. I looked for a job. At 64, I wasn't exactly a hot commodity. I'd been a stay-at-home mom for most of my adult life, going back to part-time work as a librarian after the kids were grown. I'd retired 3 years ago, looking forward to travel and grandchildren and the quiet years I'd earned. Instead, I was applying for positions at bookstores and cafes, anywhere that would hire someone who needed to rebuild from nothing. A small independent bookstore downtown called me in for an interview. The owner, a woman named Helen, probably 70, with silver hair and sharp eyes behind red-framed glasses. So she said, looking over my sparse resume, "You worked as a librarian. You've been married for nearly 4 decades, and now you're looking for work. May I ask why?" I could have lied, made something up about boredom or wanting to stay active, but I was tired of lies, even kind ones. My husband died 6 months ago. I just found out he stole my identity and destroyed our finances. I need a job because I'm trying to avoid losing my house. Helen set down the resume and looked at me for a long moment. Then she smiled. "When can you start?" I worked at Helen's bookstore 3 days a week. The pay wasn't much, but it was something. More importantly, it gave me a place to go, a purpose that wasn't just survival. I liked recommending books to customers, organizing the shelves, feeling useful. Helen and I became friends. One slow afternoon, she told me about her own marriage, which had ended in divorce 30 years ago. He wasn't dishonest about money, she said, restocking the mystery section. He was just dishonest about everything else. Other women, other lives, other versions of himself. When I finally left, everyone told me I was overreacting, that all marriages had problems, that I should try harder. She looked at me. But you know what I learned? The people who tell you to try harder are usually the ones who have never had to try at all. The court hearing was on a Thursday, cold and damp with the threat of rain. Michael came with me. Lisa didn't. She'd sent a text the night before. "I can't watch you do this to Dad's name." "I'm sorry," I'd replied. "I understand. I love you." She hadn't written back. The courtroom was smaller than I expected from TV shows. The judge, a man in his 60s named Edward, listened to both sides present their arguments. The bank's lawyer argued that I was John's spouse, that I'd lived in the house, that I'd benefited from the marriage, even if I hadn't directly benefited from the loans. Karen stood and in a calm, clear voice destroyed that argument piece by piece. She showed the forged signatures, the expert testimony, the separate accounts, the pattern of deception. She showed John's letter, his own admission of fraud. Then she called me to the stand. "Mrs. Jenkins," she said, "when did you first learn about these loans?" "When I opened the safe deposit box after my husband's death." "In 38 years of marriage, did your husband ever discuss taking out equity loans on your home?" "Never." "Did you receive any of the money from those loans?" "No. It went into accounts I didn't know existed." "Did you sign the loan applications?" "No, I did not." The bank's lawyer stood for cross-examination. He was young, probably in his 30s, and he had the polished aggression of someone who'd never really lost anything. "Mrs. Jenkins, isn't it true that you trusted your husband with the finances?" "Yes." "So you chose not to be involved in financial decisions?" "I met his eyes. I trusted him. That's not the same as choosing to be defrauded." "But you benefited from the marriage. You lived in the house those loans were taken against." "I lived in my home." "Yes. The one my husband and I bought together 40 years ago. The one he put at risk without my knowledge or consent." "You expect us to believe that in 38 years you never suspected anything." That was the question, wasn't it? The one I'd been asking myself for 6 months. I took a breath. My husband was an accountant. He was good with numbers, organized, trustworthy, or so I thought. He hid his mistakes behind competence, behind my trust, behind 38 years of me believing that love meant not questioning, not doubting, not looking too closely at the things he told me not to worry about. I paused. Was I naive? Probably. But naivety isn't consent to fraud. The judge called a recess. We waited in the hallway, Michael packing, Karen checking her phone. Me sitting perfectly still on a wooden bench. "You did great, Mom," Michael said. I nodded. But I wasn't thinking about my testimony. I was thinking about Lisa, about the daughter who couldn't accept what her father had done, who needed the lie more than she needed the truth. After an hour, we were called back in. The judge looked at both lawyers, then at me. "I've reviewed all the evidence," he said. "The forged signatures, the expert testimony, the defendant's own written admission. While I understand the bank's position regarding spousal benefit, I cannot ignore the clear evidence of fraud committed without Mrs. Jenkins's knowledge or consent. I'm ruling in favor of the defendant. The loans are void. The liens on the property are released." Michael grabbed my hand. Karen smiled. And I felt something that had been clenched tight in my chest for 6 months finally release. We'd won. But walking out of that courthouse, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. Tired and older and strangely empty because what had I won really? My house, yes. My name cleared, yes. But I'd also lost a marriage I thought I understood. A partner I thought I knew. And maybe a daughter who couldn't forgive me for telling the truth. That night Lisa called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mom." Her voice was thick, like she'd been crying. "I need to tell you something." "Okay." After the hearing today, I went to the bank. I asked to see Dad's records, the ones you showed the lawyer. I wanted to prove you wrong. She took a shaky breath. "But you weren't wrong. It was all there. Everything you said, and there was more. He had a credit card in my name, too. I never opened it, never saw it, but it's there. $23,000. My credit is ruined, and I never even knew, oh, John, even from the grave." His secrets kept spilling out. "Lisa, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have listened. I couldn't imagine Dad doing that. He was my dad. He taught me to ride a bike and helped me with my math homework and walked me down the aisle. How could that person also be this person? Both people were real," I said softly. The good father and the man who made terrible choices. People aren't just one thing. She was quiet for a moment. Can I come over? Of course, anytime. An hour later, my daughter sat at my kitchen table, and I made us tea and we talked, really talked about her father, about the debt, about how love and betrayal can exist in the same person. How sometimes the people we trust most are the ones who hurt us deepest. Not because they're monsters, but because they're human and flawed and desperate. Karen helped Lisa file the same fraud claims I had. Michael pulled together all of us, all three of us sitting in my living room going through documents, making plans, rebuilding. We'll get through this, Michael said. And I believed him. Not because it would be easy, but because we were finally telling the truth, finally seeing clearly, finally not pretending that silence meant peace. The bookstore became my sanctuary. Helen taught me about running a small business, about inventory and ordering, and the quiet satisfaction of matching the right book to the right reader. One day, a woman came in looking lost. "Can I help you?" I asked. She hesitated, then said, "Do you have anything about financial abuse in marriage?" I walked her to the self-help section, pulled down 3 books, and then on impulse said, "I have experience with this. If you want to talk." We talked for an hour. Her story was different from mine, but the pattern was the same. Control disguised as care. Isolation disguised as protection. Manipulation disguised as love. When she left, she hugged me. "Thank you for believing me." After she left, Helen looked at me. "You're good at that." "At what?" "Listening. Believing, not judging." I thought about Lisa's initial reaction about the friends who'd pulled away when I started talking about John's fraud, uncomfortable with the messiness of it. "I know what it's like to not be believed," I said simply. Over the next few months, more women came to the bookstore. Word had somehow spread that there was someone there who understood, who'd been through it, who could point them toward resources and lawyers, and the truth that they weren't crazy. They weren't imagining it. They weren't alone. Helen and I started a small support group that met once a month in the back room of the bookstore. Just a circle of chairs and coffee and women telling their stories. Financial abuse, emotional abuse, the quiet kind that doesn't leave bruises but leaves you hollow. I shared my story at the first meeting, all of it. The Tuesday bank trips, the safe deposit box, the forged signatures, the court battle, the daughter who initially didn't believe me. The reconstruction of a life I thought I'd figured out. "How did you stay strong?" someone asked. "I didn't," I said honestly. I cried. I was angry. I was terrified. But I kept moving forward anyway because the alternative was giving up, and I'd spent too many years letting someone else make my choices. The group grew. 10 women, then 15, then 20. We shared resources, phone numbers for lawyers, tips for rebuilding credit, strategies for dealing with family members who didn't understand. One evening after a particularly good meeting, Helen and I sat in the empty bookstore drinking wine from paper cups. "You know what you're doing, right?" she said. "Running a support group, building a legacy. John tried to destroy you, to leave you with nothing. Instead, you're helping other women avoid the same fate. You're taking what hurt you and using it to help others." She raised her cup. "That's not just survival. That's transformation." I thought about that word, transformation. I'd spent so much energy trying to get back to who I was before, trying to reclaim the life John had stolen. But maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe the point was to become someone new, someone forged in the fire of betrayal and loss and the hard work of rebuilding. A year after John's death, I stood in the bookstore at our support group's anniversary meeting. 23 women in a circle. Some I knew well, others not. All of us connected by the common thread of having trusted someone who broke that trust. When my husband died, I said I thought my life was over. In a way, it was. The life I thought I had, the marriage I believed in, the future I'd planned, all of it died with him. But something else was born. Not immediately, not easily, but gradually. I looked around the circle. What he did to me was wrong. Legally, morally, ethically wrong. And I won't pretend otherwise, but what I did next, that was my choice. I could have stayed angry, stayed a victim, stayed stuck in the betrayal. Instead, I chose to move forward, to rebuild, to help others, to transform pain into purpose. After the meeting, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 35, her eyes red from crying. "My husband handles all our money," she said. "He says I'm not good with numbers, that I should just let him take care of it. But something feels wrong. I don't know what just wrong." I took her hands. "Trust that feeling. Ask questions. Look at the accounts. Don't let anyone, not even someone you love, keep you in the dark about your own financial life." She nodded, crying harder. "What if I'm wrong? What if I'm just being paranoid? Then you look foolish for 5 minutes, and then you move on, secure in the knowledge that you were protecting yourself. But if you're right, and you don't look," I squeezed her hands, "you could lose everything." She came back the next month with documents in hand. Her husband had been taking money from their joint account and putting it into crypto investments he swore would make them rich. He'd lost $80,000. She'd filed for divorce the day before. "I'm terrified," she told me, "but I'm also free." I knew exactly what she meant. Lisa's credit was eventually cleared, just like mine. Michael invested the $50,000 he'd saved back when John tried to get him involved in the failed startup into a college fund for his kids, locked tight where no one else could touch it. And me, I kept working at the bookstore, kept running the support group, kept moving forward. On what would have been my 39th wedding anniversary, I went to the bank, not First National where the safe deposit box had been, a different bank, one John had never walked into. I opened an account in my name only, just my name, and I deposited my paycheck from the bookstore, modest but mine. The teller smiled at me. "Is there anything else I can help you with today, Mrs. Jenkins?" "Actually," I said, "I'd like to change my name on the account. Not Jenkins, my maiden name. Sarah Ellis, because that's who I'd been before John, before the marriage, before the 38 years of trust that turned to ash. And that's who I was going to be moving forward. Not erasing the past, but reclaiming the parts of myself I'd set aside." I walked out of that bank with my head high, and for the first time in a year, I felt like I knew exactly who I was. If you're reading this, if any of this sounds familiar, the locked doors, the secrets, the feeling that something's wrong but you can't quite name it, trust yourself. Ask questions. Look at the documents. Don't let anyone tell you that love means blind trust, because it doesn't. Love means partnership, transparency, respect. And if you find out you've been betrayed, if you open that safe deposit box and your world falls apart, remember this: you are stronger than you know. The person who tried to erase you didn't succeed. You're still here. And that means you can rebuild. I did, and so can you.